Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we'll discuss CDSB's open consultation to advance nature-related financial disclosure at scale. My name is Leslie McKenna, and I'll be your moderator for this morning. Before we begin, I'd like to talk you through the format. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and we encourage everyone to submit your questions using the Q&A function on the right-hand side. We will also discuss some of the questions from the consultation at the end of this presentation, and we invite everyone to get involved and submit your thoughts and your comments. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce you to CDSB's Managing Director, Marty McBride. Now I will pass you over to Marty, who will take you through our work here at CDSB and talk about the consultation process in more detail.
Thank you, Leslie, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Depending on where you are, I'm delighted to be with you today to talk about our consultation process that we're currently running to advance the role of nature-related financial disclosures at scale and explore the role that CDSB and our framework can play in that. So for those of you that are new to CDSB, we were set up in Davos nearly 15 years ago, so very topical at the moment, the outcomes of Davos, to help the market provide decision useful information on climate change to investors via the mainstream corporate report. And we focused on climate for about 7 years, and in 2013 we started the process of exploring how we could potentially think about integrating environmental and natural capital information into the mainstream financial report. So CDSB is made up of a board, so we have 8 board member organizations. We're chaired by the World Economic Forum. We're housed inside the Carbon Disclosure Project, or CDP, and we are supported by nearly 50 academics, companies, investors, accountants, accountancy professionals globally that want to advance this space. They're a huge, insane asset for us. And if anyone is on the line today that is a member of our technical working group, thank you very much for all that you do for us. We really appreciate it. So we launched our framework into environmental information in 2015. And we're now in 2020. And we thought, well, it's a good time to just check in, see if it's still fit for purpose, and if it's fit for the effort that we need. And all actors are going to need if we are going to meet the ambitious climate and environmental goals that have been set by 2030. I guess in short, why we were set up is I guess to create, in the absence of an organization like the International Accounting Standards Board, think back to 2007, that doesn't make sense, does it? 2007, when CDSB was set up. And if you think back to then, we just had just coming out of a global financial crisis was very much with us. And the International Accounting Standards Board has launched interpretive guidance on IFRIC, called IFRIC 3, which was how to report greenhouse gas emissions. And the moment the financial crisis hit, it was all hands on deck to get the right sort of financial policies in place, and IFRIC 3 was put to its side, and that was the end of that for the International Accounting Standards Board engagement on this area. So when CDSB was set up, we were set up in the absence of a globally accepted sort of accounting standard to help companies report climate environmental information now into their mainstream reports. So we are all about mainstreaming of the E of ESG. Our work goes beyond just the framework. We enjoy helping create the enabling conditions in the market to help environmental and climate information become mainstream with the same rigorous financial information. We work with numerous multinational, bilateral organizations, accountancy bodies, regulators, standard setters, investors, companies, anyone that's interested. Collaboration is core to our mission to try and help produce tools that will further this agenda in the market. So we do the how-to approach. So we have an EU environmental reporting handbook, which is sort of case studies, sort of telling you what good reporting looks like. We've explored how accounting standards can be interpreted to report and do business as usual now and report newer issues like climate in the mainstream report. So that's uncharted waters. We've supported stock exchange creating climate resilient stock exchange listing requirements, and we also talk about help regulators build the evidence they need to act. And the Case for Consistency was a project we ran with the OECD to look at the need for consistent decision use for consistent comparable information for capital markets. So we also participate in quite a number of advisory groups, largely across the G20, where 80% of emissions fall, to help, again, work across sectors, investors, companies, and regulators to really drive this agenda at the pace that needs to happen. So as a result of our leadership within the climate and environmental space, we're here today to talk to you about the consultation process that we've just launched to accelerate the rate of nature-related financial disclosure and explore the role that our framework can play in this. So why now? We've just embarked on the super year for nature, and it's kicked off with a bang at Davos with the biggest sustainability presence ever outside and inside the tent, if you want to call it that. World leaders are all making significant commitments as we head towards the Convention on Biodiversity in China and the COP in Glasgow later in the year. We're seeing lots of new initiatives emerge, all trying to address this big challenge. And we're just trying to see what role or how this framework can actually play a constructive role in helping to help everyone achieve what they're trying to achieve as part of not just this super year, but again, as in the decade of ecosystem restoration as well. So why do we need to take action now? So we're off track to achieve the SDGs, in particular on climate and biodiversity. The decade of biodiversity is closing. We're far off meeting the AHE targets. I don't need to tell you all, you've probably seen all the headlines in the last few weeks, but extinction is a very real thing. Even my beloved koala seems to be heading in that direction, and we need to take action now. So we're also hearing increasing calls from authorities across the world. We're seeing in the UN, big call to action from Gutierrez this week, for all actors to play a role. We're seeing the EU's Green Deal signaling out a natural capital accounting framework and need to move money to more sustainable sources and radical sort of action they want to take under this next presidency. We're seeing UK's leadership with the Green Deal looking to create potentially a task force for nature or something of that like. We're seeing China to start talking about biodiversity. Well, until I think they've got other issues at the moment, but the big plays for what they can announce this year. The French and the Dutch are also sort of starting to think about what role they can play in the global leadership around natural capital and nature and advancing that agenda. So what role does nature-related financial disclosures play? So I don't need to tell you all this. It's an old one, but you can't manage what you don't measure. So the work that you do using the CDSB's framework helps you to do that. We also, by using the sort of work that CDSB does, we help bring natural capital into the heart of financial decision making, and we can play a really important role in helping with the reallocation of capital to more sustainable investments to fast track the transition we need to a more sustainable economy. So just going to touch now on why CDSB is working in this space and a bit on our framework, and then we'll move through sort of setting the scene onto the consultation itself. So why CDSB? So we're very aware that we sit in a very perceived to be a very complex world of lots of different initiatives and standards and ways to report. We are an active member of the Corporate Reporting Dialogue and looking to harmonize our efforts is very core to CDSB's mission that we harmonize, collaborate, work with others, build on best practice in the market. We already cover climate environmental reporting within our remit. We align with existing regulation across the world and a reference for compliance with many government regulations across the world, from Australia right through to, funny enough, even actually in the US, and referenced in global exchanges, stock exchanges for compliance from Peru and Ecuador right through, again, through Asia, Africa, and across to Australia and New Zealand. We like to bring people together to share knowledge and work out how we can take this agenda forward step by step. It may be quite small and granular in places, or might be quite big steps like revolutionizing our framework, for example. But as I said, we have a great technical working group that like to come together and talk about these sort of trickier issues and really think about how we can progress with what we've got, because essentially what we're asking for in CDSB is what is business as usual already. You need to report your risk and opportunity to your investor in the market. So we're just trying to work out ways of using what business knows now and the tools and resources they already have to hand to help them do that in a way that can help not just the business, but also the global good. No, what we're talking about now, we're not talking about shareholders anymore, are we? After this week, we're talking about stakeholders. We're talking about the global stakeholder community now, aren't we? And thought leadership is very much central to some of that convening and aggregating space. And we enjoy doing that with the private sector, but also with policymakers. So CDSB's framework, it's built upon seven guiding principles, which are kind of the how, and the 12 reporting requirements, which are the what to report, and the how to report. I guess you could frame that. CDSB's framework is fully aligned with the TCFD recommendations and principles, for those familiar with the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures recommendations. It was built and developed based on the CDSB framework and other leading frameworks. And in our case, Mark Harney's team extracted from, I might biasly say, some of the best in the market, and took CDSB's principles and requirements and wrote them into the TCFD. So they are very much aligned and are complementary to existing reporting requirements such as CDP, GRI, SASB, and other existing regulations. And it's also, for those of you familiar even further, it's referenced, for example, in EU non-financial reporting guidance, as well as stock exchanges, as I mentioned earlier. So it's this framework that we're looking to consult on. We're looking to see if the market still thinks that it is a fit for purpose, or if we need to do some more work to it to help it. It's 5 years ago. This space has moved very, very quickly. What do we need to do, in your opinion, whereafter, to take us to the next level, the next step, so we are fit for purpose for the next 5 to 10 years to support the agenda? So we have an open consultation to the public. We invite corporates, financial institutions, governments, asset owners, civil society, academics, anyone who wants to respond. We very much welcome your thoughts to one question or all of the questions. We're not particularly, we just want to hear what you have to say on the bits that are most important to you. And if you want to help us work on those bits, please also let us know that too if you have those expertise. So I think it's download the consultation document if you haven't already from the CDSB website, www.cdsb.net/consultation. I'll mention that again. And I'm going to talk you through some of the consultation questions and the consultation more and the responses over the next few slides. We're going to have a poll running on the right-hand side. This is not a formal submission, so you can't get out of submitting a consultation response, ladies and gentlemen. It's just for fun to show you how it works and sort of get our conversation going today and get you thinking of a few questions to ask me. So the closing date is the 28th of February, 2020. If you need an extension, I suggest that you write to me and beg, but we'll be lenient around that. We are under a bit of pressure to trying to get locked in, because we have 2 governments that would like to see the outcomes of this to help inform their thinking on what they do around nature-related financial disclosures, biodiversity, and environmental reporting more broadly over the next 12 months. So we are under the pump a little bit to publish this information, but we also expect we will convene around it, because we're opening up a big document, but we are sure we're going to get lots of really good ideas in. We already are getting some really quite interesting ideas in, which is very exciting for us. And we may need to bring groups of people together to actually chat about them and decide if this is the best for CDSB to do. Or it might be it sits better with another body like the Natural Capital Protocol, the Capitals Coalition and the Natural Capital Protocol, or again, an amendment to maybe CDP's questionnaire, or something completely different that needs to happen. But CDSB has always convened, built off the best in the market, and tried its hardest to fill the gaps to advance the agenda. So I'm personally looking forward to those roundtables myself, just to sort of hear all the juices flowing of all the fabulous ideas people have to sort of shift the bar. But I feel like Leslie's looking at me. We need to get onto the polling, so I've been a bit indulgent with my talking. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Marty. All really, really interesting stuff. And I think it's fantastic to have your expertise as managing director, having been leading our mission and our vision for so long. It's really fantastic to have you here today. So as Marty did mention, we will be doing some polling now. And as we say, we want this to be interactive. So we encourage everyone to submit their answers and their comments and their questions. So the first question that we will look at is, CDSB draws its content from CDP, SASB, Natural Capital Protocol, IFRS, and the TCFD, to name but a few. As Marty mentioned, our work is extremely collaborative, and we do work with the sector to make sure that the right tools and resources are being provided to meet the market needs. So our question to you today is, what other frameworks and/or standards could be drawn on to support the provision of decision-useful, nature-related financial disclosures in the mainstream report? I'm going to set up the poll now, which will take place on the right-hand side. And while I'm doing so, perhaps, Marty, if you have anything additional to add to the question or the comment, you could take that away.
For those of you who know me, you never have to ask if I would like to keep talking about CDSB and our work. So, as Leslie said, we've always built on what was in the market. We were there to fill gaps. And it's important as we go to update this framework now, that we make sure that we take into account all of the other framework standards, tools, resources that potentially are in the market that have developed over the last few years, to make sure that we're referencing them in the right places and building again on what's the best available in the market. So please do, through the poll and through your responses, let us know the things we might not have already in the framework once you have a read. And also drop us an email if you've got any thoughts as well. We're really happy to have a dialogue about the resources that are out there to support getting information in the mainstream corporate report in a consistent, comparable, and decision-useful way for the investors. How are we getting on, Leslie?
Excellent. So while I'm setting up the second poll, Marty's just going to talk through some of the answers that have come through and see where we've gotten so far.
Thanks, Leslie. Well, we have very good comments. I've got ISO has come in, and also someone also suggested that we look at the sustainable finance standard that they're just about to release as well as the natural capital one that's being worked on. Fabulous answer. As well as GRI, absolutely, we do need to look at what they're developing in their standards and perhaps some even the sector work as well. So very valuable, both of those, and two which I know are very well used within the market. We also have had one that said IAS 36, which is also a fabulous suggestion and part of a paper we're actually already working on in this space. So again, watch this space. We have also integrated reporting. So CDSB's framework can directly support reporting of the if you want to call it octopus leg of integrated reporting, look at that particular capital. But what is most interesting about CDSB's frameworks in terms of the principles and requirements, you could actually apply that to any capital, any of the 6 integrated reporting capitals as well. But I do think it's a good point, and we probably should make that more specific. We did write a paper when the IR framework first came out on how you could use CDSB's framework and the IR framework to report climate in an integrated or a mainstream report. We do need to look at that, and linked to the integrated reporting point, we also need to look at what is coming out of the International Accounting Standards Board's management commentary approach, consultation, which will come out in the start of Q3, I believe, and what they're asking for, because that may also take on board quite a lot of the integrated reporting sort of principles and thinking there, which may also affect what we have to have in our framework. And also we had the SDGs come in, and I think that is quite an interesting point, because we've never clearly, because we've always been about dependencies, so looking at what company's bottom line is essentially dependent on. We've never sort of taken an SDG reporting track, although we have aligned to things like the the United Nations International Accounting Standards and Reporting Group. Sort of, they've got very clear indicators and targets on SDGs. So maybe we should be. It's a good point, and let's have a look. I'll get the team to have a look and see how we can cross against those. And if we can't do it formally as part of the framework, make sure we have some form of reference document like Dr. Giles Malloy produced last time to demonstrate where you can collect information from that you have for the framework to use against your SDG reporting.
Excellent. Thank you, Marty. So we will move on to a question around accountancy standards. So I will open this poll again. This one is a select your answer. So we ask which existing international accountancy standards could be adapted to better support the provision of decision-useful nature-related financial information to investors. So IFRS 7, IFRS 9 and other. We'll also run this poll for a minute or two to allow everyone to submit their questions. Again, the poll can be accessed on the right-hand side of your screen. If you can't see those options, please do submit your answer using the Q&A. Or also, if you look along the bottom of your screen, there should be a button with 3 dots that you will be able to pop up the poll from there. We've had quite a few answers come in already, so hopefully this question is quite intuitive. But Marty, if there's anything else that you would like to add while we're having the final results come through, please do feel free.
Thanks, Leslie. I think what's really important about this question is that, as I said earlier, CDSB was set up in the absence of an international accounting standard, but to help businesses do what they do using the tools and resources they already have. And so several years ago, we published a paper called Uncharted Waters, which was referenced earlier, looking at how IFRS 7 and 9 could be used to report climate and climate-related issues, and it's been extremely successful. And should we be thinking about expanding that out now for environmental and nature-related issues, or is there something else that would be better fit for the market? Should we be thinking about taking the Australian Accounting and Audit Assurance Standards Board's interpretive guidance on climate change, the first government in the world to publish, first country-specific body in the world to publish accounting guidance on this particular topic? It'd be great to get some thoughts from you in the market about what we could help you do to make this as much business as usual as possible and not just another add-on. It seems that everyone was in agreement with IFRS 7 and 9. So I might have to go back to that group of experts we were talking about earlier and see if I've those technical working group experts and see what else they might be able to throw at me for the next webinar. What do you think, Leslie?
Marty, that would definitely be very interesting, and I'm sure our participants would be quite interested to hear how that would go down. And that then will take us to our last polling question. So again, this is an open-ended answer. What mechanisms could help advance nature-related financial disclosure? We have put the example as mandatory disclosure. Of course, there are many other options and various mechanisms and different routes and avenues that we could really help to accelerate this. So while I'm setting up the poll and getting it running, Marty, would you like to talk through maybe some other ideas for inspiration?
Okay. So in terms of mechanisms, I think we've heard earlier a lot of different ways CDSB works. There could be as part of a coalition of a could be a sector-based coalition. It could be mandatory regulation from the government. It could be quasi sort of mandatory guidance with signals to act, like we've seen from the Bank of England on TCFD. If you don't act, we will regulate. It could be a global UN signal. It could be commitments via organizations like Women Business and Business for Nature. What sort of it could be just CDSB updating its framework and training all of the capital markets around the world, the key capital markets across the G20, how to do it. Is what in your opinion will really help to take this forward at the pace and scale that is needed? So I hope that helps inspire you to give Leslie some good answers. So we've had a question, sort of a point come in, which I think is really interesting, which is about creating, and the person that has submitted has said that where they think it's missing is the ESG disclosure reporting, is ESG accounting, and an ESG accounting framework is needed before reporting can actually take place. And that is true. We do need all of that work does actually need to happen before you pick up CDSB's framework and start to use it. We would refer you typically now to resources like the Natural Capital Protocol, which is now under the Capitals Coalition, which also has the Social Capital and Human Capital Protocol, to help you prepare that to then use CDSB's framework to put that in your mainstream report on accounting. It doesn't apply for all of ESG yet. They have some elements for human and intellectual, for example. And there are many other initiatives that play at the moment to develop the methodologies for the other sort of capitals. But for example, if you report to CDP, if you report to GRI, then in many cases you already have a lot of the information that you actually need to disclose in your mainstream filings. You just need to collect it, make sure it has the same sort of controls on it as you would for financial reporting, and that can be fed through to the mainstream report for investors. So I urge people that there are, if you do try and embark on TCFD reporting or natural capital and environmental reporting using the CDSB framework, to look what you already have to your existing reporting, because a lot of that is actually extremely useful and will save you a lot of time and money.
Thanks, Marty. So we're just going to close the final poll now, and then we will talk through the results in a couple of seconds.
Okay, so we've come up with a number of very, very good answers that I would personally like to take forward. We have the mandatory disclosure where it's material. I absolutely believe that materiality is very key to this. Financial reporting is built on material information, and CDSB only focuses on material information to capital markets. Also, we have had the CDP as the platform, and I wonder if this person wants to add to the chat, but it says disclosure platforms such as CDP. CDP's platform is continually expanding and growing in terms of remit and scope, and it's a great place. We will work closely with them on the outcomes of this to make sure that CDP data can flow seamlessly through the mainstream report via our framework, using the same principles and requirements that the TCFD has already. We've got legislation, and I think things like, I think the writing is on the wall. I think governments are saying, you've had time to act. If you're not acting soon, then we only have one choice, and that is mandatory disclosure and targets, such as compulsory net zero targets. Standardization, I think, is absolutely key as well to this, and hopefully the framework can provide or continue to provide a standardized way to report environmental information to markets using tools that are already out there. CDSB's framework is about reporting the risks, but also opportunities. We should not forget that to capital markets, and we need to see. And interesting, there's also a comment about making sure we're connecting sort of some of the front narrative with the numbers at the back, and that is absolutely critical if we're going to move this area forward. And reasonable assurance, I think, is also a great input that someone has suggested. What level of how comfortable are we with what we're saying in our report? How comfortable are, using my old Aussie expression, kicking the tires of our data and our reporting and our controls, just to make sure they are fit for purpose for this new information that may not once have traditionally been captured and processed by department for the internal controls or internal audit department, for example. So really great ideas and lots of food for thought there for my team.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Marty. We are running close to the end of today's webinar, so I'll pass you over to Marty to talk about our call to action and what we would like you to do.
So last year, for me, it was all about moving beyond the hype. We couldn't have the hype anymore. And this year, there has to be a call to action. Everybody needs to be taking steps, and then not just and spreading the word about what they're learning, what they're hearing, and help empower those around them to take steps towards a better future for all of us. So what I'd like you to do when we leave today is to familiarize yourself with the CDSB framework if you don't already know it, and have a look at the consultation questions. Put together a response by the 28th of February or thereabouts. Don't dump me in, but I can have a few days here or there. Spread the word about this. Tell other people that you think might have something to say on this topic, either by email, LinkedIn, or across social media, using the Natural Cap Action hashtag if you can, and then we will continue to push your word out there as well. Talk to us. Drop us an email. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about this if you've got questions. And let us know who else we should be talking to about this. So we've got the info at CDSB email address. We've got the consultation website. And as we move to take questions, I'll just leave you with a quote to read from our chairman, Rick Salmons, the Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, about the importance of this work. So, Leslie, do I have any questions?
Yes, Marty, we've had quite a few questions come through, some of them which you have answered during the discussion, so I don't think we need to repeat them all. But please do, as Marty said, reach out to us, get in touch if we haven't addressed your question directly, or if you would like more information, we'd be more than happy to discuss in more detail.
One of the questions that Leslie had was, how does this all fit with what happened at the World Economic Forum in Davos last week? So many of you would have heard about, we touched on it earlier, the shift from shareholder to stakeholder and some of that thinking. We've heard about the massive big, the sustainability being in and outside the tent. We've heard about the World Economic Forum looking at how it can streamline and signpost around different accountancy frameworks led by the American Business Coalition. And this work ties really quite nicely into that framework that they've laid out there. CDSB's principles and requirements directly support that direction of travel and where they're headed. And it also underpins a lot of the announcements we heard made from the UN, from companies, from Davos. We had lots and lots of people calling to action. We had Business for Nature make big policy commitments, about where they want to see business by business, where they want to see this agenda go. So this is very much at the heart of supporting the agenda of, as Rick says, helping to facilitate the urgent allocation of capital to projects that are going to help move us to the sustainable future whilst protecting what we have already. So which government's interest in the outcome? I'm unfortunately unable to say, but I've seen the name of the person that's asked the question, and it's not the Australian government, I'm sad to say. But maybe we could work on that together and find a way for them also to be interested in the outcomes.
That does bring our webinar to a close, and we do try to keep these as succinct as possible. We understand how busy everyone is. So we do thank you all for participating today. As I mentioned, if you do have any other questions that we haven't assessed or addressed, please feel free to reach out to us directly at info@cdsb.net. We invite you all to participate in the consultation again. So just as a reminder, the consultation can be accessed on our website, cdsb.net/consultation. The process is quite simple, so you just need to download the CDSB framework along with the consultation questions, some of which we have addressed today, and then you just need to submit using the submission tool. And as Marty mentioned, our team are always on hand to help, so please do reach out to us, tell us who else we should be talking to and then what else we should be talking about. And thank you once again, Marty, for your presentation.
Thank you, Leslie.
And hope to see you on future webinars soon. Bye-bye.